Hey there and welcome to the Herbal Moon Goddess podcast. My name's Kyra and today I'm going to be talking about something that I feel like everyone kind of knows about, but still it throws us all into a bit of a panic when it happens. And that of course is Mercury Retrograde. Yes, Mercury is about to go retrograde again in January 2022. So in today's episode, I'm going to be breaking it down exactly what to do and what not to do in Mercury retrograde, plus a bit about what to expect and what it all means. If you're curious and you're like, well, what's all this Mercury retrograde stuff? Stay listening because I'm going to explain it all to you very shortly. So let's start off by talking a bit about retrogrades. What does it mean when a planet goes into retrograde? So pretty much all the planets go into retrograde at some point, and what that means is just that they appear to be moving backwards in the sky. Retrogrades are actually just an optical illusion. The planets, they're actually not really moving backwards. It's all to do with our perspective here on Earth and like the planetary speeds and like all to do with our perspective here, where we are in the solar system and where they are and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's pretty much just an optical illusion, but this optical illusion definitely has effects that we feel here on Earth. So when planets do go into this retrograde movement, when they do appear to be moving backwards, then the energy of those planets can kind of, feel a bit blocked. It can kind of not quite go to plan. It can bring up these different challenges depending on the energy of that planet. So when we're talking about Mercury, Mercury is the planet of like communication, intellect, travel, technology. So all these things that Mercury is associated with can kind of not go to plan when Mercury is in retrograde. So we're going to be talking a bit more exactly what's coming up in Mercury retrograde in a moment. So I guess what you need to know about Mercury retrograde is that it happens all the time. Well, not all the time, but Mercury retrograde does happen about 3 or 4 times a year, and it happens for about 3 weeks each time. It's a regular thing that happens, like I said, nearly all the time. Mercury retrograde does happen quite often, and I feel like, this happens because it's a chance for us to kind of slow down our busy minds, be more mindful about what we're saying and the ideas that we're expressing, and we get a chance to review any ideas that have come up and, maybe refine them before we move ahead. So Mercury retrograde happens for a reason, and there's, so many positives to do with Mercury retrograde. So let's just start off by saying Mercury retrograde is not a bad thing. I don't want you to go hibernate for 3 weeks. You can totally get through this, and you can definitely use this energy to your advantage. So as I said before, Mercury is the ruler of all the things to do with like communication and connection. So it has all this stuff to do with our thoughts, our ideas, how we're expressing those thoughts and ideas, whether we're speaking them or maybe writing them down, writing emails, texting, or whatever it might be, sending letters in the post. Travel is another thing that Mercury rules. So whether that's traveling by car or traveling by plane or anything else where you're getting from one point to another point. Mercury also rules things like the mind, the intellect. So, sometimes when Mercury's in retrograde, we might be suffering from a bit of brain fog. We might not be able to think with as much clarity as we'd like. So this can be a really good time to just slow down and just really think about stuff for a while before you move forward with your ideas. So Mercury retrograde is starting on the 14th of January 2022. Now, coming up to that date, Mercury is kind of slowing down in this optical illusion that we're seeing here from Earth. So it is possible to feel the effects for a few weeks, even from the start of the year through to the 14th, when Mercury does actually start to go backwards in the sky. So pretty much until mid-February, Mercury retrograde does officially end on about the 4th of February. However, like I just said, you can feel the effects for a while before and after. So yeah, like through to mid-February or even after, you may still be feeling the effects of Mercury retrograde. So what's going to happen with this Mercury retrograde, the first Mercury retrograde to start off 2022, Mercury is going to be starting in the sign of Aquarius. It's going to be stationing retrograde at about 10 degrees Aquarius, and then moving backwards in our perspective here from Earth to about 24 degrees Capricorn, where at that degree it's going to station direct and start to travel forwards again in the sky from our perspective here. So as Mercury traces this path, it's going to make a few different aspects with planets, 3 times as it goes over them once and then travels backwards over that planet and then forwards again for the final time. So most notably of these transits that Mercury retrograde is going to make, it's going to be conjoined with Pluto 3 times. So that's probably the most significant thing that's coming up astrologically with this Mercury in retrograde in January and February 2022. Pluto is the planet of transformation, endings, and new beginnings, and evolution, growth. I guess Pluto has this kind of power with it, but there's like a struggle with it, a power struggle, if you will. So as Mercury does cross over this Pluto energy a few times, we do need to be mindful of any power struggles coming up in the conversations or the connections that we're having with other people. But particularly in conversations, if you're having challenging conversations, just be mindful. It could be this Mercury retrograde with Pluto energy that's really making things difficult. So, of course, there's other beautiful things that are coming up with Mercury retrograde. It's not just all this doom and gloom with this Pluto thrown in the mix. I feel like this Mercury retrograde through January and February 2022 will really give us a chance to heal and find a deeper understanding as Mercury makes a sextile angle with Chiron, which is the asteroid of deep healing, as well as making a sextile angle with Pallas Athena, which is the asteroid of spiritual understanding. So sextile aspects are pretty much these really easy, comfortable aspects that bring positive energy. They open up opportunities between the energies between the planets. So I feel like this is really like the silver lining of the cloud is that this Mercury retrograde particularly opens up these opportunities for us to heal ourselves, heal our connections with other people, to talk things over and find healing through those conversations, as well as finding that deeper meaning, that deeper spiritual understanding, and that sense of magic. Like there's with Pallas Athena, that asteroid I just talked about, the asteroid of spiritual understanding, she's very much full of finding like that magic of life, that sense of magic, that sense of like deep meaning that you sometimes kind of just find it and it's like, oh wow, that all makes sense now. So you may experience that sort of feeling during this time when Mercury is in retrograde throughout January and February. So I'm going to break it down for you now exactly what to do and what not to do while Mercury is in retrograde this January and February. So first up, do check and review your plans for 2022. Do check back on the goals that you set at the start of the year, any plans that you made at the start of the year. It's a really good time to just double check in because, as I said, pretty much from the start of the year, we've all been in like this, the shadow phase of Mercury retrograde. So we have been starting to feel the effects before Mercury has actually even gone into retrograde. So this means that if you've kind of spent the first few weeks of the year planning out the rest of the year and getting really excited about your goals and everything, you may want to just double check in with them. Just make sure that, you know, everything's still kind of viable, that it's actionable, that there's actually stuff in there that you still want to even do, because you may not have been thinking that clearly to start off with. So yeah, number one, definitely check and review your plans and your goals for the year ahead. Number two, be prepared for the unexpected. So Mercury going retrograde in the sign of Aquarius. Aquarius is this innovative, weird kind of sign which is full of unexpected surprises. So as Mercury does spend quite a bit of time in retrograde in Aquarius, we could just, you know, it could really stir up some unexpected stuff for you. So prepare for the unexpected. What could possibly go wrong and how can you prepare for it? So I'm just going to throw it out there right now. Back up your devices, back up your computer, back up your phone, back up whatever it is that you have valuable information stored on and you want to keep that, back it up now, because Mercury going into retrograde, I mentioned earlier, Mercury also rules technology. So yeah, you've really got to look after that technology side of things. Back everything up, back it up to the cloud, back it up on an external hard drive or whatever. Back it up in multiple places is really the best way to go. So yeah, number two, back up, prepare for the unexpected. Number three, talk it over. Definitely talk it over during this Mercury in retrograde. If there's stuff that's been on your mind, and especially if it's been like quite heavy stuff that's come up in the new year, now is a really good time to talk it over, because Mercury retrograde does give you that chance to review, to reflect, to think things over again and again so you find more clarity. So talk it over with your partner, talk it over with a friend, talk it over with your dog or your cat or your pet crystal, I don't know. Talk it over with someone, because it will really help you find more clarity on whatever it is that's coming up in your mind right now. So talk it over. Number four, find the spiritual understanding. So I mentioned this a little bit before, a bit about finding that spiritual understanding, which is probably going to happen anyway naturally during this Mercury retrograde. But if you do really want to go deeper with this, then always look for that spiritual understanding and that spiritual meaning for why things are happening. So an example of this could be, you know, you're driving along and, you know, traffic jam, or you get every red light. And, you know, this is typical Mercury retrograde stuff, by the way, because of the travel issues with Mercury retrograde. But like, you know, you might be sitting there at like the fifth red light and you're just like so angry and you're like, why universe? Why are you stopping me at every red light? So this gives you a chance to stop and think, okay, well, why? And maybe it is just because you need a bit of time to slow down and stop rushing and catch your breath, or do your Kegels if that's something that you do at the traffic lights, because I know that's something that my physiotherapist told me to do. So what is it? What do you need to slow down and remember to do? So this, I'm sure that you'll find some spiritual understanding in situations like that, where you're feeling really frustrated because technology or travel or whatever just isn't going your way. So why? Just ask yourself why, and hopefully you'll find that spiritual understanding. And then I think my sixth do on my to-do list for Mercury retrograde is transform your thoughts. So particularly as Mercury retrograde goes over Pluto, the planet of transformation, and Mercury being the planet of thoughts, there is this really beautiful opportunity for you to change how you think, to change your thought patterns, to transform that mental self-talk that goes on in your mind. This could be a really powerful time to really change some of those thought processes and make some lasting changes that have a ripple effect through the rest of your body. So, and life as well. So something that could be really useful during this Mercury retrograde is positive affirmations. Just really going hard at it over these next few weeks. Have like positive affirmations stuck on post-it notes all over your house and put them as reminders that come up on your phone, or whatever it is that how you like to remind yourself of positive affirmations. Keep saying them to yourself, because you could really utilize the power of this Mercury retrograde to change your thoughts and transform your entire life, really. So those are the things to do during this Mercury retrograde. Check your plans, review your plans, be prepared for the unexpected and back up stuff, talk it over, find the spiritual understanding, and transform your thoughts. I think that's 5. I think I missed one. Or maybe I just can't count. But anyway, those are the things to do. Now, what not to do. 1, don't go on impromptu trips. You may think it's a good idea at the time, and then, you'll be, in the process of traveling and you'll get a flat tire or something else will go wrong. Just don't do it. It's not a really good time to do that unexpected traveling sort of stuff. If it's stuff that you've planned out in advance and you've prepared for the unexpected, you've prepared for stuff that might go wrong, you've got a backup plan, then go for it. That's fine. But if you just kind of wake up one day and you're like, I'm going to go do this today, I'm going to travel over here and do this, just don't do it, okay? Trust me, you'll regret it later. So 1, don't go on impromptu trips. 2, don't make hasty changes. So as I've mentioned a few times, with that Pluto involvement in this Mercury retrograde, we may feel like we need to make some big changes in our lives, and we may not think things through because we may have that brain fog that comes with Mercury retrograde and all of that. So yes, this can be a really powerful time for change, but don't rush into it. Just don't rush into things without thinking about it, especially if they're really important changes that can't really be easily undone. Then maybe don't do it. Maybe wait until later in February when you're thinking a bit more clearer. And if it still feels true to you then go for it. But yeah, while Mercury's in retrograde, just don't do it, because you just may regret acting so fast. So yeah, 2, don't make hasty changes. 3, don't make important plans for the future. So hopefully you've kind of already got an idea of your goals for the year ahead. And yeah, Mercury retrograde does give you a good opportunity to go back and review those goals. But just be mindful of making really important plans for the future, especially if you're like, oh yes, I really need to do that. Like, it just may not go to plan if you're planning it out during Mercury retrograde. So now's not the time to really make those important plans, because often by the time that it rolls around, it just may fall through. So avoid making those important plans. If you can hold off making those important plans till after Mercury is out of retrograde, that would be best. And then my 4th little thing on my not to do list is don't rush into things. And I've kind of already said this before, but it's worth saying again. Don't rush into things this Mercury retrograde. You'll probably regret it later. You're not thinking clearly when Mercury's in retrograde. So you may think it's a good idea at the time, but chances are it's probably not. So don't rush into it. Take things slowly. Really, Mercury retrograde is just this beautiful time to slow down and just revisit some old ideas, tie up loose ends. You can, review stuff, but maybe don't start anything new at this time. It's just all about that, going backwards and reflecting and reviewing. And of course, like the standard stuff that comes along with every Mercury retrograde, like don't text your ex, double check all your emails and text messages before you send them, avoid traveling or prepare for travel delays. Like, yeah, all that standard stuff that comes with every Mercury retrograde absolutely applies to this Mercury retrograde as well in January and February 2022. But yeah, for the most part, just slow down. Like, just for these few weeks while Mercury's in retrograde, it will really help you throughout the rest of the year. Having this time to just slow down now at the start of the year and to get really clear on things, yeah, it will be really helpful. So if you'd like to know more about Mercury retrograde, I'd love to invite you to the Herbal Moon Goddess Academy. We talk about this sort of stuff all the time. Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde, all the planets are retrograde. And in fact, you can even take the astrology forecasting course inside the Herbal Moon Goddess Academy. And that tells you, pretty much everything that you need to know about retrogrades and what's coming up for the rest of the year, the rest of the retrogrades as well. So the link to join the Herbal Moon Goddess Academy, where you can study astrology, tarot, and all these other witchy stuff at your own convenience, the link is in the show notes below. I'd love to see you inside the Academy. It is just such a fun place to be, and you know, you just pay by the month and cancel at any time. So yeah, come along, learn heaps of stuff. I'd love to see you in there. So I hope that you found this episode really helpful. If you have any questions about Mercury retrograde, don't forget to pop them in the comments below or send me a message on Instagram at herbal.moon.goddess. And I'll see you all in the next episode of the Herbal Moon Goddess podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Bye.